Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time to look back at a favorite for many shippers, Stucky, the pairing of Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, but this time with a twist. A lot has gone on with Stucky throughout the years as the MCU has evolved, as this is very much an MCU phenomenon, but Dark Stucky or Hydra Stucky found a way to blend comic and MCU canons in an intriguing way. This video was one of the winners of the monthly vote over on Patreon. Yes, one of them. There were two ships so neck and neck I just had to do both. Special thanks to all who voted. It helps us get some intriguing ships and vids out there. Now a brief overview of Stucky. We've talked about this pairing a fair bit on this channel, including the rather lackluster send-off these two got in Endgame, not even from a shipping perspective, but from a narrative one, from central focus to saying their goodbyes off-screen. Some feel that fans wanting an on-screen moment is entitlement, while others state they know the film will unfold as the creators intend, but it would have been nice for these two to have a proper send-off after so much build-up, and that not all fan service is inherently bad. Fans have a bit of a bad rap at the time of this recording. Stucky exploded in the MCU fandom post-2014's Captain America 2: The Winter Soldier, a loose adaptation of the comic of the same name, which had only reintroduced Bucky to Marvel Comics fans in 2005. Up until that point, Bucky had been considered the one true comic book death. The bond between Bucky and Steve became a driving force in the Captain America movies, and Steve's motivation for many of his actions in the MCU. Their devotion and connection quickly launched them to become the dominant pairing for a time. There was always some jostling with Stony, a pre-established ship with firm comic roots. Of course, there were multi-shippers who loved both for different reasons, and for the most part the ship wars were minor, at the start, until 2016's Captain America Civil War, where fans became as divided as the Avengers, and for some fans, firm camps formed, Stucky or Stony, Team Cap or Iron Man. The character bashing fics from this time period are legendary, and some never left their camps. Over time, Stony has moved more into prominence once more, but Stucky is a fandom staple and core pairing in the MCU, and the dominant one depending upon where you are. Like all MCU pairings, it has ridden the waves of change and tropes of the time, as each MCU era produced unique fics. A good example being the Domestic Avengers, which we have done a video on. If you missed it, you know the drill, card, link. An era that was at its peak from 2012 to 2014. Now, Stucky has become one of those pairings where one can find pretty much anything they're looking for trope and plot-wise. So of course, this pairing has angst and dark fics, but Hydra Stucky is a little bit different. Now, there had long been dark fics dealing with Bucky's brainwashing, and him whether not being fully out of it or not remembering his past self at all, and Steve's struggle with that, or Bucky taking advantage of that for nefarious purposes. There was also Dark Cap and Evil Captain America, but that was a rarer animal, at least until 2016 through 2017, where several comics would co-align to grace the world with, and then quickly retcon away / undo, Hydra Cap. The panel of Captain America stating "Hail Hydra" has become a meme at this point, and many are at least loosely aware of how poorly it was overall received, though not universally, as some feel that once complete, the whole plot was worth more than some gave it credit for. So what exactly happened here? Well, on May 25th of 2016, the issue of Captain America Steve Rogers was released, which included the now infamous panel, that was even mocked in Avengers Endgame. This was quite salient, as Chris Evans, who plays Rogers, had tweeted out about this panel upon its release, stating, "Hydra? #say it ain't so." Now this panel actually comes from the first issue of this comic, which followed a rather convoluted plot, at least for those jumping in the middle. Steve Rogers had had his super soldier serum removed pre this comic, and hence was no longer Captain America, the mantle passing to Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon. However, this comic, Captain America Steve Rogers, saw him reprising his role as Captain America, as well as being de-aged, as he had aged once the serum had been removed. However, this de-aged Steve Rogers was not the Steve people remembered. No, he was a sleeper Hydra agent, hence the panel. People did not take this well for a few reasons. One, Captain America, especially post-MCU, is a very recognizable and beloved figure. And even before that, he has a similar but not identical status to Superman, at least in the ideal department, meaning part of his appeal is what he represents. So to have the symbol of American virtue take up his mantle once again, something fans always anticipate, that being original characters taking up their mantles, only to essentially be presented as the antithesis of everything that they once stood for, did not sit well with some. Another factor was the climate of 2016, which was a turbulent year for the United States, notably the location where Captain America has the most significance. And depending upon where one stood, having Captain America shift in such a way after such an election was simply too much. As always, mileage varies. As mentioned, some felt it was a very good story. All of this was the start of a long plot, which ultimately culminated in a mega crossover event, as most things tend to at Marvel these days. This one called Secret Empire, wherein Captain Hydra, as the fans had come to dub him, this evil Cap's machinations were revealed, and the heroes had to rally against him and Hydra to counteract a full takeover. Extreme Cliff Notes version. Hydra Cap was actually manipulated by the Red Skull through the Cosmic Cube, and later a mind fragment is revealed to be the true/original Captain America, even though it was still sorta Hydra who was the original, but for appeasement purposes, most accept this explanation. This part did get a little convoluted. The point is, we have a non-Hydra Cap back. So Captain Hydra, or Hydra Supreme as he was going by at this point, was relegated to poor decision history to potentially live another day. However, all of this took the span of years, and over that time, Hydra Cap had an intriguing impact on fandom, and Stucky in particular. Some came to have a fondness for Hydra Cap, or at least the concept of him and how he could be employed in fandom. Suddenly, to have a dark Cap required no great canonical leap or twisting of character, which people would reject, as having a jerk Steve or a mean Steve was very different than having a Hydra Steve, as some fans and shippers do require a more firm foundation to get into an idea. Now there was a real dark Cap, and so some fans found themselves utilizing this dark mirror for pairing purposes. It could manifest many ways, perhaps in a swap of the dynamic, a secretly sleeper agent Steve breaking the heart of a newly healed Bucky. It could also take the form of the two being evil Hydra agents together, a dark force to be reckoned with, reveling in their villainy. These fics will often delve into the kinkier aspects of fandom as well, and employ one of the more enjoyable and amusing tags out there, Hydra Trash Party. Ain't no party like a trash club party. The fan art also has a particular aesthetic, with many basking in Cap's darker colors and Hydra uniform. Now there are some who find this problematic because of the Nazi-esque elements present in Hydra and the uniform, feeling that to dive into this would be to admit an interest in such fare or an affinity or an apology for real-world historical events, while others feel there is a separation to be made between actual Nazis and fictional groups such as Hydra, and that much of the enjoyment comes from evil Steve, and that the Hydra connection is incidental, as it is simply the massive villain organization that Marvel attached him to, and the most well-known for more MCU-based fans. Captain AIM just doesn't have quite the same ring to it. Some also just find the concept of such a virtuous character turning so dark appealing, akin to the massive amounts of love some have for Dark Superman, who also often when that happens tends to turn a bit dictatorial. As for the aesthetic, some feel that is a completely separate appreciation, more to do with enjoying a uniform or uniform kink than the specific uniform, and that, in general, it was just always a good policy not to infer intent, and especially not to jump to the worst possible conclusion. Others, simpler still, just love the color scheme, the fact that Bucky and Steve now match. Still, if one is uncomfortable with it, there are plenty of other Stucky tropes out there to be explored, which far outnumber the amount of Hydra Stucky out there. Dark fare is not for everyone, nor is Hydra Cap. Hydra Stucky was an intriguing phenomenon, floating on the margins of Stucky until comic events allowed it to have a focal point to latch onto. It was also smaller because being an MCU or Stucky shipper does not guarantee one is a comic book fan, or if they are, that they are reading Captain America Steve Rogers. All in all, Hydra Stucky has a home in the hearts of certain shippers, or is a fun offshoot to visit for others, while some missed it entirely, or prefer a more mainstay fare untouched by comics. As the MCU is so large at this point, it does have solely movie-based fans, or some fans may just not want it to be touched by that specific comic arc. Hail Hydra. Is Hydra Stucky for you? Or when you think of Dark Stucky, does something else come to mind? What did you think of the Hail Hydra incident? Also, if you like hearing about comics and want more in-depth info but relayed in our usual infotainment style, then we have a second channel, Casually Comics. Come on over and check it out if you're interested. We're having a fun time over there. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing shipping with me. I always appreciate it. Special thanks to all my patrons for voting and helping to make all these shipping vids possible. Their names are on the side. I really appreciate it. There are as always more videos coming soon, so please like, share, comment, subscribe of course, and stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.